Thank you guys for coming today. And today we're going to be talking about dashboard design. Me and Hafsah are going to be presenting you the whole presentation, and we understand the whole design phase, life cycle, and bring some demos for you all to understand how the process works. So we are from KPMG Lighthouse team, which normally do business in terms of data engineering, data warehousing, and those kind of stuff. We tend to use Power BI a lot in terms of our visualization tool. And yeah, let's get on to the introductions. Myself, my name is Nimai Ahluwalia. I've been with KPMG since past 1 year. I work as a BI data engineer, and I've been Microsoft certified trainer in terms of Power BI. And in my free time, I tend to watch sports, maybe one of cricket.
Hi everyone, I'm Hafsah. So I studied Master at university, which allowed me to develop a keen interest in tech. And those are mainly my motivations in applying to the grad scheme here at KPMG, where I've been for just under 8 years now. It's coming up to 2 years in November. Outside of work, I'm an avid F1 fan. So last weekend, this thing towards UP was the highlight of the season, in my opinion, because I'm not much a Red Bull fan. But yeah, that's a little picture of me that I've done a Grand Prix last year. And yeah, that's a little bit about me.
So guys, rating from 1 to 10, being 1 lowest and 5 highest, how often do you use Power BI in your particular life? 1 being the lowest and 5 being the highest.
Maybe you guys can put your hands up. We'll talk through 1 to 5.
2, 4, 3. Okay, great. And how often do you think that design is really important before you kick off a Power BI project, before like signing off a design prototype or actually building your report? 1 being not that important, 5 being very important.
Yeah, how much time do you guys spend on design when it comes to these projects? Like 1 being really low amount of time and 5 being the most. So let's say 1, you don't spend much time thinking about design at all. Okay, all right. 2, 3. Okay, anyone at 4? Okay, great. And anyone at 5? Nice. Okay, amazing. The 5% really got it nailed down. We want to talk today about design and how it's super important. So the 1s and 2s in the room, if you don't spend a lot of time focusing on design, we want to reiterate the fact that design is an end-to-end process and not just an afterthought. So we'll touch a little bit more into that in just a second. But a little bit of a roadmap for today. So we're going to talk through why you should care about design and why it's super important to not leave it as an afterthought and consider it through every single stage in the development process. Then we'll talk a little bit more on some tried and tested methodologies we can use to really enhance your dashboard and how to take it to the next level. And then we'll talk about how to integrate this into the current processes we already have in place and to make sure that it is an end-to-end process, not just an afterthought. Because as data engineers, it's really easy to become really engrossed into building a really strong data warehouse, and then we really let it go on the design side. We're not really giving it that sort of importance that it deserves.
Let's talk about why design is important and how you should keep your perspective in terms of designing your wireframe, designing your Power BI report. So for example, if you are going on to a restaurant, before going inside the restaurant and tasting something, what do you look at first? The ambience of it, right? And then if you're satisfied with the ambience and the design of the whole restaurant, you keep a thought that let's go inside and taste the food. It might be nice or bad, but for first, you have a look at the ambience of the restaurant. So in the same way, when your consumer or any of your client is looking at your Power BI report, so before actually interacting with the report, before actually interacting all the features you have built inside the Power BI report, their first glance would be on the wireframe, the design, and if they're not happy with it, everything goes wrong. So keeping in mind design, the first look onto your report is really important. So if you make some mistakes in the engineering features, like some drill down issues or something like that at the back end of Power BI, first your design looks perfectly fine and your client is happy in your first instance, everything goes all right. So the design should be intact, and then comes the engineering features. So you should always focus on designing your report first, your wireframes first, how it will look, where the cars are going to be, where the windows are going to be, how you're going to place all of them at the pages, and then you focus on how to build your report, your data models, and what features you're going to be implementing on your report. So normally when you start learning Power BI, what you tend to go or you tend to Google is that how to do what if analysis, how to do drill down, how to do this, how to do that, but no one focuses on how to actually improve the UI of it. So we tend to learn the engineering features of Power BI, but tend to leave the UI, which is the first look and feel of the report. So what my suggestion is that instead of focusing too much, 100% of the time on the engineering features, learning Power BI should also focus on learning how to build a good UI or a UX wireframe in Power BI. So in the term of design, there's a very great word, is cognitive overload. Have you guys ever heard of this? What does it mean? Yeah, that's it. Nice. Yeah. So I have built a sample dashboard, you can call it a wireframe as well. It doesn't look like a dashboard, it looks like a wireframe. So can you tell me, any one of you, what you feel is wrong in this, or what do you think is the scope of improvement in this wireframe?
Organization. Too much information. Organization.
The organization, yeah, for sure, definitely.
Different sizes.
Yeah,
Too much information.
it's really hitting you the wrong way, isn't it?
Exactly. Your brain is not able to hold still and understand which category of things are placed where. So if you see the card visuals not aligned properly, there's no proper spacing in there. There are filters horizontally, vertically. You're not categorizing filters on the left-hand side, cards on the right-hand side. The visuals are not on the proper sizes. The buttons are quite ahead. There's no proper labeling given on them. So your brain doesn't find good, or it's not able to process the wireframe quite easily. It should be very, very much easy. Like within just a single glance, you should understand where things are where. So basically, it gives you a hard time understanding the wireframe, right? That's what cognitive overload is all about, where you don't understand where things are where, and your brain takes time to process and understand. That's wrong. And now let's talk about same cognitive overload in terms of a visual perspective. So can you tell me which visual is quite easier to understand? The left one with all axes, or the right one? The right one.
Left one.
The left one.
We're divided. Who says left? Hands up. And who says right? Okay, so majority say right. Great.
Talking about the left one, if you want to sum up this kind of data, bar chart would be much more better. It's because you have different axes, so you can get to know what sales there on Fridays or on Wednesdays, on Tuesdays. But if you're doing a part to whole comparison, pie chart will be a better option. So if I just look at this, it would take me at least 10 seconds to understand which is my larger contribution date, which is Friday. But if you first look at the visual, you see 63, you're right, that's dark blue color. Let's go on a legend and see, oh, it's Friday, 63%. But when you look at this visual, straightforward, within 2 seconds, your brain strikes, yeah, 63, Friday, max, that's it. But the same amount, because these two are different, but if you want to present this kind of information in the on the left-hand side visual, then you need a different visual for it. So like that.
Yeah, I think like human psychology as well, it's really hard for us to process like the angles in a pie chart, and it's easy to gauge the information in a bar chart, for example. And you can see the differences in the bars rather than seeing it broken down like this. But yeah, I understand. I see your perspective, but maybe a different type of visual would be better to process this information. Okay, moving on to some stepping stones on to the basics of dashboard design. These are some of the key bits that we should all take into consideration when it comes to designing a really, really great dashboard. So firstly, understanding your audience, really understanding who the user is going to be. If we're making a dashboard, for example, for senior management, then do we want a dashboard that displays loads of detailed information, or do they want like the top level figures, right? So understanding that firstly, and therefore only including really important content that's necessary. And to display this content, we want to use clear, concise tooltips. We want to use a theme that's consistent throughout the dashboard, and using the right visual to display this information as well. These are all really, really super important. Coming on to some leading practices when it comes to design. So firstly, focusing on the purpose of the dashboard. What is your dashboard trying to say? What is the story of the report, right? Once you've got that, then it's super easy to figure out a design that complements the purpose of the dashboard. So finding a layout. As humans, in English, we read from left to right, right? So why not make your dashboard complement that? Why not make your dashboard read from left to right? So at KPMG, what we do pretty often, and we work with clients, they like to see KPI cards on the left and then read rightwards into more graphic visuals. So you're reading it, but you're reading it in a way that complements human psyche. It complements the way you think and the way you visualize data. Number 3, finding a good theme and sticking to the good theme throughout the entire dashboard and being really consistent with that. 4, we touched on this earlier about the pie chart. So choosing the right visuals to display the correct sort of information. So if it's data that we're displaying over time, for example, would a bar chart be best, or would a line graph display this information better, right? So a line graph in this situation would work best, sorry. And number 5, if there's one thing you take from the slide, it's number 5. Without number 5, the rest, they can make a good dashboard, but number 5 is really what takes it to the next level. If you're consistent with all 4 points above throughout the entire dashboard, then it just looks really good quality. You want a dashboard that is as important that you put on a pedestal, like how you put building a data warehouse on a pedestal, right? You want to really complement that. You want to show your efforts. You want to show off your efforts in such a way, in the best way possible, so that the user on the other end is getting the most they can out of this dashboard. So number 5, be really consistent in everything you do, with all your colors, with all your visuals throughout the entire thing. Also, it's also really important that I know Power BI have loads of different visuals and features. Sometimes we can get a little crazy and try to use every single one, but that isn't really important. You need to focus on using the right visuals. So we tend to often use bar charts and line graphs more often than not, and it's fine. You don't have to use everything that Power BI gives you, but just focus on what the point is that you're trying to make. Okay, so these are a few tips and tricks that take into account human psychology when creating a dashboard. It will just take your dashboard from being a good dashboard to being an excellent dashboard, right? So these 4 are some principles that I'm going to speak over in just a second. But the golden ratio and Gestalt principle, I'll talk into in a little bit. But the data take ratio, a little bit about that. There's someone called Edward Tufte. You might have heard of him, but he's really famous in the world of data visualization. And he came up with a data take ratio, which states that whichever visuals you have, the bits of information that you're displaying in comparison to the bits that sort of complement that, like design elements, should always take priority. So you don't want things in there that are redundant, that aren't really telling you anything. You don't want to make it too busy. Again, with the cognitive overload, you don't want to lock that. So data takes priority. And Jacob's law, which also states that the design of your dashboard should be ergonomic. So people tend to use websites that they like the interface of, right? So they like a certain way things are laid out. So sticking to a dashboard that complements that, rather than something different, which people can sometimes struggle to get around, unconsciously so, but sticking to a design that people are familiar with is super, super important. Now, going into the other 2 a little bit more. So you might have heard of the golden ratio. It's a really famous principle in mathematics, and it's based off of the golden rectangle even. So the golden rectangle, if you chop up this rectangle into different rectangles, all the rectangles in there will all follow the golden ratio with height to its following this 1 to 1.618, right? And psychologists have done loads of studies in this, and we don't know why, but we as humans find this ratio really aesthetically pleasing. I think designers as well, they like to use this ratio because remember how I said when you chop up the rectangle, it makes your dashboard really visually balanced and cohesive, and it's really easy to organize a dashboard that following that ratio. So for example, the Mona Lisa and the Eiffel Tower, they all follow the golden ratio. So it seems like the French are onto something when it comes to design. Okay, moving on to Gestalt's principles. So we as humans, we like to find patterns in things, and we like to organize things a certain way, and we don't really tend to think about that. But Gestalt's principles, these aren't all of them. These are just a few. There's a few more. There's a few more principles as well, but I'll just touch on these a little bit. Sort of kind of they sort of explain the way we sort of think of these things, right? So similarity, for example, when we see bits of information that are related, we tend to put them together. So like in proximity, we put things that are related closer together and things that aren't that related further apart. So thinking about these things when designing a dashboard is something that, again, we'll take a dashboard to the next level. And being really mindful of this as well is super important. Okay, right. I touched a little bit of Jacob's law there. So creating an interface that is super intuitive and super ergonomical will really help your user engage with your dashboard. Something we all tend to forget as well is creating an accessible dashboard for everyone, right? You never know, like your user might be colorblind, so they can't see whether or not your KPI card is green or red. So maybe putting in like an up arrow or a down arrow to make it really accessible to everyone. So being mindful of things like this as well. And one final point to reiterate here as well, that the person, the designer and the user, there should be a constant stream of communication. So at KPMG, what we do is we mock up these wireframes. So our clients are interacting with us right from the beginning, right? We're not building the data warehouse and there isn't any ambiguity. So we're communicating with the client straight from the beginning, straight from the get-go. So having this constant stream of communication would really lead to a great collaboration and a really great end product as well.
Thank you, Hafsah, for your on-point explanation about tips and tricks, about design principles which we need to use. Now let's talk about how we can use all these tips and tricks, design principles, and actually follow the process of ending up into a good wireframe, right? We know which principles we want to use, we know what ratio we want to follow, we know we require guest-led principles to work on our wireframes. Now let's understand what's the whole process of ending up into a good wireframe, right? So whenever you try to build something, it's always important that whom are you building for, why are you building it, and who is going to consume that your wireframe or your Power BI report. So requirement gathering is really important. You need to understand what your client wants. Like for example, if they want a high-level report, then you might want to keep the KPI cards. If they want a granular report, then you can keep a table visual with some KPI cards and some filters around that. It's always important that you get the requirement first and then go on to the next step. So once you have all the requirements, we move on. Like you have a clear picture in your mind that what you want. Now you take a book and a paper and pencil and you try to draw how your wireframe would look like so that you can go back and change if you want to. Once you have a clear picture in your mind and you've drawn and you can see your wireframe in front of you in a book, then you can use any tool, any UI tool like Canva, Figma, whatever you're comfortable with. And then you can actually create a prototype, how your actual report is going to look like. And then in this way, you tend to, it's going to be a two-way thing with that prototype thing is between you and your customer. So you can send across, they might give you some modifications, you can change onto your UI, put some things here and there. And it also gives the client a good control over it and feels confident that they know what are they going to get at the end. And if there's some modifications, you can just do it right away. And then once everything is signed off, like your design is signed off, so your client knows what they're going to be getting at the end, and then you can go on building all your Power BI features and then using those prototype. And once your prototype is built, signed off, you tend to implement that on your Power BI and then release it. And there's a very key important thing over here is that, as I said before learning Power BI or learning what features are there in the Power BI, it's also that same amount of importance you have to give to the design as well. So for example, if you have designed a prototype, if you have worked on the engineering features first, you have done the drill throughs, you have used the drill down feature on the visual, and then you come to know, and then you go on to the design phase, it would be quite difficult for you to change if there be some change in future. So it's better that you do a design first and then do the engineering features later on top of that design and then release it to the client. So in this way, you are a bit step ahead and you don't just put it up in your design and engineering to and fro stuff.
Okay, so coming on to a little bit of demo we have for you guys. Let's hope the time was. Okay, great. Give it a sec. There we go. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, right. So this is the mock-up of a dashboard we made in our limited spare time. But a little backstory: Barbie Inc. want to see whether or not they have enough Barbies in their cohort staff to tackle the world's major issues. So this is a little dashboard here that we can use to display this information. So as you can see, the dashboard has a nice theme. It's pink, it's giving you information really clearly. You've got your KPI cards at the top. It reads really ergonomically, like we've been reiterating. You've also got options here to drill down into much more niche areas and also drill through. So we can drill through here and see that, yes, indeed, we do have enough Barbies to save the world, right? And anyone who's watched the film knows that a Barbie can't survive without her Ken, adding some skills of beach and party to the really all-important task of saving the world. So we can see here as well that we have enough Kens to do that. What you guys might be really surprised with actually is that this is not a Power BI dashboard. This is actually Figma. So our capabilities are on Figma. This isn't Power BI, this is Figma, sorry to reiterate. Let's see if this works now. 1 sec. Can you see this still? Yeah. Great. Okay, so this is Figma. This is what we use at KPMG to create wireframes similar to how I've just shown you. And one really cool feature about Figma is as well that you can actually export these backgrounds and then import them into your dashboard. So it enhances the speed of, enhances the performance of your dashboard as well. So that's a little tip there for you. So this is actually a background that we've imported here and using this in the background, and then we put our visuals on top of that to do the exact same thing basically.
Yeah, and if you see the UI which we created in Figma is exactly the same over here in the Power BI report. So there's no quality degrade in terms of the background, and if there's some instance where you have to change, you can directly go and change the Figma and then import it without using actually tools in Power BI, which would make your Power BI report quite slower in terms of performance. So using Figma for design optimization is also great. And you can use these features or drill down features everywhere in this Power BI. And if you see specifically, everything over here in terms of cognitive overload is properly maintained. You can see the card visuals on the top. You can see visuals on bottom over here. You can see some bookmark features which you can use on the symbols of the icons over there. So in this way, we tend to use wireframes built on the Figma and then import it on Power BI, and they exactly look the same. So if you are submitting a prototype to your client, you can actually submit a Figma prototype to them instead of submitting a report where you have to create all stuff in Power BI and then do changes in Power BI, which would take more time. So using Figma would be quite easier to change if there's some modifications by the client. Instead of changing those modifications in Power BI would actually take a bit more longer. So using Figma for modifications, for prototyping, for building, and for telling your clients how your report is going to look like, Figma is the best tool which we can use in terms of creating a whole wireframe. And then once you create it, just import it as a background and place your visuals on top of them. It's going to look exactly the same. Your client is not going to complain you that your Figma looks different and your Power BI report looks different, but they're all going to be the same at the end.
Exactly. And we've been using Figma for a while now. We really want to test its capabilities. So we want to test how far we can go with using it. But so at KPMG, what we've been doing, we've been creating like a toolkit of sorts, which has your basic visuals that you can enhance and create wireframes really super quickly and keep them all cohesive, and also do this before, like at the beginning of the project phase, but alongside your client to increase that collaboration and really show them exactly what they're getting. It shows you exactly what's on the tip, what you're getting. So yeah, just to summarize, today we covered why design is super important and why we should be considering this throughout the entire life cycle of the development process when it comes to creating these reports. We touched a little on some psychological tips and tricks we should be mindful of when creating a really great dashboard. We looked at Figma, and hopefully, hopefully you guys have taken something from this presentation, and I open the floor to any questions. The end of that.
You mentioned earlier that you guys have some sort of toolkit, I guess, with the standard visuals.
Yeah.
Particularly like
Ours all look the same and the bar charts all look the same. Is that what you've done?
So I don't have an example here to show you just yet, but how it works is you can set up a toolkit in Figma. So exactly how you were saying, you can have pre-designed graphics for visuals, and you can have pre-designed sort of icons for KPI cards, and all you do is just drag it onto the screen, and it's super easy to create a markup of a dashboard. You can do it in like less than 2 minutes.
And all the team use that.
Yeah.
Which I guess.
And then you can also make it sort of different. It's not really standardized. You can play around with the colors, you can play around with the themes, but that helps you really speed up the process in creating these wireframes.
Yes.
So essentially, it's just the background picture, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then in a way, there is many tools that you could use, like that generate picture, like, you know, artificial intelligence, image generators.
Exactly.
So technically, could you just, is it very similar? I mean, is there anything that actually you get from the data that?
So Figma is a tool we use, and like you mentioned, you can also really tap into the AI. You can tap into so many different tools and follow the same process, and you end up with the same result, right? The reason we use Figma is, you know how I showed you the Barbie dashboard earlier. You can actually show the interactions between some bits, so that's why we use Figma at KPMG. But like you said, you could develop backgrounds on AI and other softwares and follow the same process, and it should do the same thing.
And also Figma gives
found
you.
the job in, sorry.
What is it?
Absolutely. We've been through a bit of a journey with dashboards and clients. We used to start off by just sketching out, we've been through PowerPoint prototyping, but the trouble with that is then we create something that looks like the finance product. Whereas if you do with Figma, you can actually wireframe or prototype a dashboard that actually looks like the dashboard you're going to deliver at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And then the ability to import those themes, backgrounds, so it creates a layout that you can have select visualizations into. So
Yeah.
that really accelerates the prototyping process, and actually it creates very aesthetically pleasing looking dashboard with the right layouts and themes and stuff. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of advantages.
By doing design as well, the client, you can share link to Figma with the client, they can go into Figma and comment feedback and provide with that.
Yeah.
And it's a really good collaboration back and forth. You're not sending PDFs or emails to clients, they're using Figma in live.
Yeah.
I think we comment on it, and you can go in, you can interact with people, you can ask questions that they get on Figma. It's a really all inclusive tool, it's really good to use.
I think
It's
it's
really
right, it's meant free.
You can be.
Yeah.
It's very exciting, isn't it?
You can use like 3 pages max free, and then there are certain additional benefits you get with buying pro, but there are loads of capabilities for. Yeah, definitely. Give it a go, try it out, see what you got.
So in Figma, you don't set up any data source, you just like draw boxes in the visual.
You draw boxes and visuals. It's literally as simple as sketching it out. We don't have live data feeding through it. That's the only thing that you add in the dashboard. But you can get as close to a dashboard, a working dashboard as you can without live data.
So sometimes clients, they sometimes don't know what they want, and when they actually see their data,
Yeah.
they get more of an idea.
Yeah.
So do you think Figma lets you down a bit there?
The thing is, the whole point of using Figma is to show what it's going to look like, right? The data aspect will obviously come with building the data warehouse, right? I know that's a limitation with Figma, but Figma is a design tool. It's not meant to show you like live data. That's where Power BI dashboard comes in. That's the whole point, the Power BI dashboard. But there are loads of capabilities of Figma, and you could really push it to its limits and show the client kind of basically exactly what he'll be getting just without that element.
Getting a bit confused. In Figma, we add data set as well, or like you add data set on Power BI and then you try to sync it with Figma.
Exactly. So Figma, like in the example I showed you, we just exported that as a background. Let me show you right now. You can export it as a background. So this is just an image, right? You literally export it as an image.
Can't see this.
Can you not see my screen? 1 second, sorry. Let's have a look.
Okay, so it's already open in the Chrome.
Yeah. So this basically is just an image that you can export and import as a PNG into the background of your Power BI dashboard. And then the data set is in Power BI. Yeah.
Basically, you create an image and then import that image on the Power BI.
So once you've imported that into Power BI from Figma, you won't necessarily get your visuals, you just get the background.
Yeah.
You get the background, yeah.
Okay, so
So then
you're not
you
going
can-
to have your visuals there.
Yeah, so all these are like little boxes that you can kind of fake make visuals. So it shows you more realistically what it's going to actually look like.
So you see the advantage of using Figma when you haven't got a data source.
Yeah.
You're starting a new project and you can say, we're going to gather this data.
Yeah.
We're going to show you these visuals and these reports.
Yeah.
But if you've got your data source, why not just knock up a Power BI report for a client, which is just as easy.
That's the thing though, isn't it? Like if you're leaving design as an afterthought, you're not building your data warehouse to complement that design. So Figma is more of a throughout process. It's more of like a SketchUp of a mock-up that you're going to use throughout the entire process and not just at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you've got a data source already, I see you just go straight to Power BI. But if you develop a new project, use Figma. That's what
I was to mention, I think. So if you're, like, so we're consultants, we're working with clients, and obviously they're paying for the time.
That's the
project. I think when you're going through that initial phase of prototyping and just getting design ideas out there, it's much quicker. Ignoring the data source. We don't want clients sometimes to get bogged down in the data because you can put visualizations onto the data Power BI and you immediately go to the data, start spotting problems.
Yeah.
And they're not concentrating on the design. So I completely understand the point that you're making. I think from our perspective, we're just trying to get designs bottomed out. And you can do like Figma, we can replicate a lot of the drill through functionality and that sort of stuff in Figma as well.
Yeah, for sure.
And it just takes the data out of the equation.
Definitely.
I think with that, there's a lot of a question as to where the customer is in their journey on where they are in terms of the maturity of their journey with data as well, because if they've never seen anything like Power BI, sometimes have to just throw something in there, show them some, but then from there, going into some design is rather, as you say, not getting bogged down into the details of data.
Yeah.
I don't know. I see it has a lot of disadvantages and advantages. I don't think I'll see if it's like the answer to all our questions. I think it has a lot of disadvantages and advantages.
There are limitations, like we said, but this is the point we're trying to make, right? We're trying to enforce the importance of design to complement your data. So Figma allows you to mark up a really good layout, something that really interacts with how you want to present that data afterwards. So this gives you the chance to really plan that out in as much detail as possible, basically.
Yeah, I want you to do. If you don't want to go through the prototype process, that you could not create this with visualization. If you just create a layout,
Exactly.
and just and shortcut some of that.
Yeah.
Awkwardness in Power BI, create nice backgrounds.
Yeah. Like I said, it improves the performance as well of your dashboard rather than having a Power BI, like having all your design stuff in Power BI.
And also to add on, like while you're working with Figma, there might be a team of people working on the design, and if they want to work collaboratively, we can work on the same page collaboratively with different people. So that would also be an add-on where you don't have to share your updates with people and they will work on that and then they'll send back to you. You can work collaboratively on the same page together. So that is also a key point to use Figma on.
That's a fair point though.
Yeah, like for example, if your client just calls you, I have my data source, I have everything. Can you just by end of today send me how my Power BI would look like? You can't just do that in Power BI within half a day or 1 day. Even you have your data source. So what easy way is that Figma, you can just drag and drop quick things faster, because if you want to do the same thing in Power BI, it would take you 4 days or maybe something like that to get this output. That's the difference between Power BI and Figma. Doing in Power BI and doing in Figma.
Yeah, I think we had a question over here earlier.
Yeah, I was just going to ask.
Yeah. Exactly.
Just how do you have everything within facilitate the kind of teams, you know, a regular problem I have, I'm mostly working on Google Sheets. And normally, you know, there's bits of information I want my internal team to know. It's that maybe senior people need to know. And so oftentimes we resort to having 2 different spreadsheets, you know, just copying the data over manually, doubling up the and trying to maintain those sheets just to the same people, you know, need to know, making sure that, you know, it doesn't, we don't bog down other key members of the community. Is there any capability for that in Power BI?
So you wanna combine two different Excels into single what?
No, more like, is there permissions and things where you can limit the amount of information given to certain team members?
You would then manage for that. So there was security for that. There's a terminology in Power BI which you can use as role level security. You can create different rules that only these people can see this amount of data. And so if you can implement that, I guess it could be an answer for a question. Role level security.
So there's not what it's mentioned, using a screenshot of the Figma and then bring them into Power BI. So assume that's like a static image.
Yeah. That's all it is, a classic image.
Yeah. So is there an ability to design kind of natively on Power BI?
Yeah, there is.
So that you can expand it.
There is, but it would take you much more time.
It's much, it's way more than this, actually, if you're like going back and forth between the clients and they want those changes, for example, like in Figma, it just keeps it all. Yeah. Yeah.
When you put it as a transfer, when you take your Figma RPI, can't interact with the boss.
No.
So literally that's a picture.
It's literally just a picture. Yeah.
So that is just the feature. So obviously that would be very well, the design really is all just one background. And clearly, that must be the best practice. It's significantly faster. So have you sort of personally used sort of just AI tools to play with designs and obviously making changes could be very sort of natural language as well. So I think, as an expert, I imagine you've tried it and what results do you get?
Actually, AI is one tool we've not used just yet, just because Figma's working really well for us. So when we have the capacity for that, we'll try it out, or you could try it out and let me know how you get on with that.
Well, you changed my sort of the whole view on the design because I'm always sort of played in Power BI, but now
It's all right. It's just what I'm thinking.
So those visuals, to take the background, they're so simple, right?
It's so simple. Exactly. Yeah.
Just putting it on the design front, I think on the layout side of things, anything kind of more nuanced things around, you had a color background with white visuals on top, and you had the shadow effects.
Yeah.
Is there any good use around what does and doesn't work and how to down personal taste? Because I look at it like that, but is there any kind of evidence behind having a shadow that really works? So actually having a color background with white visuals on top is a useful thing.
Yeah.
Or is it?
No, so the example we showed you, we mocked it up in pretty short amount of time. So obviously there are way better ways to improve the design that we showed you, right?
I'm not saying it was bad. I'm just wondering, is it good to have a color background with a white thing on top? Right?
At the end of the day, it's all really subjective, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's taking into account all these psychological points that we spoke about today and really making it work for you. So you don't want to have a really bright color in the background, for example, that's distracting from the information you want to display. Everything should sort of work in cohesion and be really appealing to the eye and really appealing to how you engage with it. So I think being mindful of these psychological things.
So it sounds like it's actually more about the concept of the customer, what they want. So it's not kind of generic rules that you can apply in the kind of the detailed aspects of something.
Through tried and tested methods, we found the best practices and what people tend to like and tend to go for. Obviously, since we have like cross industry experience and we've got experience within our team as well, we do make recommendations. So it's not just the client saying exactly what they want. We sort of work with the client and design something that will give them the optimal report.
You want to point myself like having a shadow effect.
Yeah.
Is that something you always do? Because that's a good thing to do. That's what I'm trying to get to.
Oh,
is
okay.
It kind of like, that's always
the
best practice.
No, not necessarily. You can. There's so many things with design you can play around with. Like having a shadow effect is not your basic. You can not have a shadow effect. You can have maybe. Is this the point you're trying to make?
Yeah,
sorry.
so is it a case of honestly, are there some hard to pass rules where you need a lot of data to see actually that's generally the better thing to do?
Yeah.
Was it purely down to your interaction with the customer saying, I like the shadow effect, that really works for me?
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like that. It's whether or not you like it or you don't.
Be careful. We was the client whose colours were red, yellow, green.
Yeah.
You want to call colours and dashboards, you like your red, yellow, green are like your right ratings, red bars and yellow bars. That could lead you to conclude that something's not good. So this, some of our clients call colour schemes are quite nice and pretty and work really well. Dashboards. I'm not saying you do exactly what the client says, but are there kinds of general rules you can apply? Everyone knows very much better. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've had like, you've asked me to clients if they want you to make the dashboard resemble the real world thing. Like now, it's not really going to, it's going to distract you from actually the messages in the data. They're trying to make the dashboard look like the changes on an airplane or on the island. So it's not adding any real value to the actual data. So we don't want to tell them that their idea is bad, but you want to sort of steer them the right way in terms of best practices.
Yeah, for sure. I think we're out of time. If you guys have any more questions, we're heading out now.
Yeah.
We'll head out now for some drinks and some pizza.